This motion, this bylaw motion, is based on actual complaints from parents. It's not created for trustees or by trustees. The following are areas of improvement that will help encourage parents and make it less difficult to navigate the delegation process. And I believe our current bylaws concerning delegation do not favor parents, but actually make it harder for parents to appear as delegation. And we need to ask ourselves the following question. Do our bylaws encourage democracy? Do our bylaws make it easy for delegations to participate in the decision-making process at the board level? Are our bylaws fair, open, and transparent, and create a culture where trustees are making one-sided decisions because all voices are not represented? And do we respect dissenting views? We must promote balanced decision-making, and the way to do that is to include all voices. How can we advocate on behalf of our constituents when we are oftentimes only hearing one side? Many parents' opposing opinions are excluded because they aren't able to register as quickly as other constituents, and that is why we need a fair, balanced process to ensure delegations on both sides have fair and equal treatment. Currently, and yes, with this motion, I was specific, but the motion does not say that what it's saying is these are key areas to look at and come back with recommendations. Currently, when delegations register it is a first come, first served basis, which ultimately gives an advantage to those who receive information first. Oftentimes, the delegation list becomes full, and some parents find out an item is coming before the board. We need to establish a fair process to make sure all voices are heard. We've also had experiences where delegations have canceled at the last minute while we have constituents in the audience who were turned away because the delegation list was full, and that is why there is a cancellation. And that is why, if there is a cancellation, delegations who didn't make the list should still have an opportunity to speak. Also, with our delegation process, we should also allow members of the gallery to speak to items on the agenda if delegations cancel and time permits. Delegations are all, with our current bylaws, delegations are expected to register on Thursday and provide the information about what they plan to speak on, and yet the delegations won't get the public report until the next day, which isn't fair. And so why are we expecting our constituents to share information without information? The board meeting agenda lists delegations after the consent agenda, which means if they're coming to speak to an item on the consent agenda, it will have already been ratified and almost impossible to reverse. Delegations should appear before the consent agenda on the board meeting agenda. If delegations register after the Thursday, their request to delegate must be approved by the board on the following Monday, which again favors trustees, not the delegate. This is something that we should look into because many times parents find out at the last minute and we're penalizing them. Question period must also be reviewed. 10 minutes is not sufficient for 11 trustees to ask questions on behalf of their constituents. If the rules don't work, and it limits transparency and accountability, they need to be reviewed to ensure that everyone is treated fairly and the principles of democracy are upheld. Right now, 10 minutes is not enough to ask questions on behalf of our constituents with 11 trustees. Our bylaws should favor students, parents, and staff and encourage communication, but oftentimes they are a stumbling block.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Actually, it's a point of confusion. I know Trustee Watson is speaking. I don't think she's speaking to the actual motion. We're not talking about that motion. We're talking about the scheduling of it. So I'm a little. It's really a point of confusion.
Oh, okay.
Trustee Watson.
Okay, thank you. The scheduling of my motion, I really don't understand why I have to serve a notice when the motion that's placed right behind this motion doesn't get to serve a notice. And yet, if you look at my motion and you look at Trustee Meisner's motion, they're very similar. They're almost duplicate. And I want to say why. So I'd like that. So if you look at my motion, the motion has this, if you look at both motions.
Well, we're speaking to your motion, so
right.
Speak to your motion,
Right.
that we're speaking to scheduling your motion.
The motion has the same characteristics of my motion. Both are asking for an ad hoc committee to be struck, but both.
Trustee Watson, hang on, just speak to what we're talking about scheduling your motion, and
Right.
You're saying that you do not believe we should have to schedule it. So talk about why you don't believe that should be scheduled, but without talking about the other motion.
Well, okay.
Okay,
So what I'll do, I'll bring that up when Trustee Meisner.
that is fine.
Comes up.
That
Okay,
is fine.
That's fine.
Okay,
So,
okay, thank you. Your point of order is sustained. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. And would someone like to speak about scheduling the motion? Trustee Ramsey? Scheduling the motion? Yeah.
Yes, but I just have a point of clarification with you. I'm just trying to better understand why Trustee Watson could not provide an example or make reference to an example of to why she felt that it would not be about scheduling, but actually more about having a discussion in the full motion. And it's almost like it's being spoon-fed in terms of what she's allowed to say and make reference to. I don't understand where the authority comes from, and I just wonder if you could perhaps explain to the board where that authority is derived from to stop her from providing examples and being told how she is going to proceed with regard to whatever arguments she wished to come up with regard to the discussion.
We're talking about whether her motion should be scheduled or not. And she did provide some arguments before the point of order. So she has spoken and actually was coming up on her time. So I would argue that she did get to say that, but the recommendation is about whether her motion should be scheduled without getting into the specifics of the motion. The specifics of the motion would be discussed if the Board of Trustees decides that we should schedule the motion. So the recommendation is not, do we want to pass these bylaws or do we want to pass the motion about the bylaws? The recommendation is, do we want to schedule a discussion? So we should not be getting into a discussion without scheduling it first.
I respectfully disagree, but you know what? I'm going to be putting a challenge. I'd like to hear further discussion, and I'd love to. Obviously, we're going to learn what the rationale is with regard to Trustee Meisner's similar motion. So it'll be very interesting, the rulings.
Okay. So we're discussing whether trustees want to schedule the motion. That starts on folio 11. Trustee Woodcock?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'll be voting against scheduling this motion, as in my some 20 years on the board, I can't recall a time when I've seen a motion to revise bylaws written in this manner, where the committee's been, anyway, I won't talk about the actual motion, but my past experience has been that an ad hoc committee for bylaw changes, an ad hoc committee is formed and they do the reviews, and then it comes to the full board for discussion. So I'll be voting against scheduling this.
Okay. Okay. Is there anyone else for the first time? No. Trustee Watson, this is about scheduling.
Yes,
Okay.
so you So the whole point of this is just so that trustees can look at it, but we can't discuss the value of discussing this. And yet trustee Meisner's motion gets the pass. It gets preferential treatment.
No,
Even-
trustee Watson, this is not preferential treatment. This is about following the bylaws, and we are, right now, we're not discussing trustee Meisner's bylaw motion. We're discussing this one and whether we want to schedule it. Okay, the motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor of scheduling the motion? All in favor of the recommendation on folio
Sorry,
10?
could I get a recorded vote, please?
When you're ready, Ms. Riddle, and I'll be voting.
Thank you. So we will start with trustee Cody,
Yes.
trustee Johnson,
No.
trustee Meisner,
No.
trustee Piatkowski,
Opposed.
trustee Radlin,
Opposed.
trustee Ramsey,
In favor?
trustee Wasim,
Opposed.
trustee Watson,
In favor.
chair Weston,
Opposed?
trustee Woodcock,
Opposed.
student trustee Reyna.
Opposed.
Thank you. That is 3 in favor and 7 opposed. That motion is not carried.
Thank you. We are moving on to folio 13. There is a recommendation on folio 13 that the Waterloo Region District School Board form an ad hoc committee to review the current bylaws with a focus on bylaw 13, board meetings, bylaw 14, delegation procedures, bylaw 24, rules of order, and other bylaws requiring updates per changes in legislation and or practice, and make recommendations for updates, revisions, commensurate with current legislation, policies, and procedures before or by October 30th, 2023. Would someone like to move that motion? Trustee Meisner, seconded by trustee Woodcock. Okay. Trustee Meisner, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I would. I think this recommendation is important in that we want to create an ad hoc committee to review the current board bylaws. Not anyone's in specifically. I would like to work collaboratively with people because there's obviously been some problems. And I think in deference to other trustees, bylaw 13 board meetings or delegation procedure, the rules of order do need to be looked at it, but we need to work at it collaboratively, just like we do with the policy working group. I think we need to align our bylaws with the board strategic plan. We need to look at our bylaws to see if our operations of governing allows this board to move forward in creating an inclusive educational experience that supports confident, creative and curious, empathetic, community-oriented students who are attentive to the relationships required in order for them to be successful. And right now, we spend far too much time, in my estimation, arguing over things that we should maybe look at as a committee, where particular instances of what you would like to see can be brought up and we can discuss it and either come to a consensus or not come to a consensus. That's how I think this board will be most effective, not having specific things before we have them outlined, but working together and bring back a report to this board. Personally, I think that's what we need to do.
Thank you, trustee Meisner. Trustee Woodcock?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Upon reading the motion, I'd like to propose an amendment.
Okay.
And the amendment is to delete the following phrase: commensurate with current legislation, policies, and procedures. I think it's redundant because we've already said changes per legislation or whatever. So I would like to make an amendment to the motion to delete commensurate with current legislation, policies, and procedures.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Trustee Meisner? Okay, we're speaking to the amendment. Would anybody like to speak to the amendment of removing that bit of the motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote on removing that from the motion. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And opposed? Okay, and abstained?
All abstain.
And that motion is carried. Okay, so we're now we're back to the main motion. And I have trustee trustee Woodcock, for you. Oh, would you want me to come back to you?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Go ahead. Okay, trustee Piatowski?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to speak in favor of this motion. I think that all boards, all governance boards should review their bylaws periodically. And they should do so without any prescriptive notion of what changes should be made. This leaves it open for all trustees to submit suggestions, and we've heard some suggestions already. I have some suggestions, I'm sure others do as well, but this establishes a process. It establishes an ad hoc committee, just as we established an ad hoc committee on school naming to deal with suspensions. Previous board established one on French immersion. The SRO review, we establish ad hoc committees all the time, and I think it's appropriate for us to do a bylaw review through an ad hoc committee, and I'll be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Trustee Watson?
Thank you. So I won't be supporting this motion for the following reasons. Number one, I don't know what the motion is about. And after hearing from the mover, I still don't know what the motion is about. I believe this motion is going in the opposite direction of my previous motion, which was voted down. So those ideas cannot be discussed because they've been voted down. And if anyone knows Robert's Rules of Order, you need a 2/3 to reconsider that. Once it's voted down, it's gone. And I would assume that everyone around the table, because it's voted down, you can't discuss them. So my motion was advocating for supporting delegations, making it easier. I believe this motion will do the opposite. The fact that my motion was voted down makes it clear the majority of trustees are not concerned about the fair delegation process or balanced decision making, and inconsistencies in our bylaw that make it difficult for
Trustee
delegation.
Watson, trustee Woodcock,
Okay.
point of order.
I'd appreciate if the trustee would refrain from implying reasons and motivation for trustees voting the way that they are on all the motions that come forward. I think it's inappropriate, and I would ask that she refrain from making those judgments.
Thank you. That's sustained. Are you
So,
going to rephrase or retract that?
the fact that it was voted down,
Don't imply why people are voting the way they're voting.
okay, it was voted down.
Thank
It
you.
was voted down. It would appear this motion is a duplicate of my motion, and I'll explain why. The motion has the same characteristics of my motion. Both are asking for an ad hoc committee to be struck. Both motions are asking for a review of the bylaws, specifically 13, 14, and 24. It is in my motion, 13, 14, and 24. Both motions are asking that the committee bring back recommendations to the board. The only difference is that my motion offers some suggested area, and for that, I was penalized. My motion was penalized, and I had to bring a review so it cannot be discussed. This motion, in my opinion, has been given, when I asked why my motion was served, why I had to serve my motion and why not this one, I was told under our bylaws 3.1 that because I gave specific areas to look at, that is why I had to serve. And yet 3.1 does not make any reference to what a motion is specifically supposed to be. And so I believe this motion undercuts my motion and should have been ruled out of order because of the similarities in structure and the sections of the bylaw. In fact, this motion right now should be ruled out of order because it's a duplicate of my motion. And since my motion was voted down according to our bylaws, the same motion cannot be heard for another year or unless someone brings a motion of reconsideration requiring a 2/3 vote. Not only was this motion allowed to stand and placed right behind my motion, it was given in my opinion, preferential treatment, and this is in direct violation of our bylaws and Robert's rules, which leads me to the next question. What is the purpose of this motion? No one seems to know. It's like a blank check. And yet, my recollection is there were many motions about bylaws that came forward that pointed in areas. And yet, my motion was penalized. I believe this motion will limit democracy and make it harder for parents and for trustees who actually bring forward constituents' concerns. This motion is a mystery. I don't believe there will be anything in the recommendations that are going to make it easier for parents. And my hope is that anyone who's watching, they need to contact the ministry and share their concerns with the ministry about what is happening here.
So, as I explained, the motion that was just voted down was a scheduling motion. There was nothing about your original motion. It was a decision to not schedule your motion. Wow, there's just so much there. There was no preferential treatment. The Agenda Development Committee looked at both motions and looked at our bylaws and determined that the wording in the motion previously had specific wording in it. The motion that is currently under discussion does not have specific recommended changes. So that's why those decisions were made.
Oh, wait, just.
So I will go Trustee Woodcock. I believe I have you next. Or sorry, no, I don't. Speaking for the first time, I have Trustee Ramsey. Did I miss anyone else? But go ahead, Trustee Ramsey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to, I move that we postpone consideration of this motion pending the passage of Bill 98. If I have a seconder, I'll speak to it, Madam Chair.
There's someone that would like to second it? Trustee Watson, go ahead, Trustee Ramsey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I won't belabor the point, but I would strongly suggest that we postpone consideration. I do believe that Bill 98 is going to be passed, and it speaks to a lot of the stuff that, a lot of the issues that my colleague, Trustee Watson, raised around transparency. Board transparency. I was at Queen's Park today and spoke to the standing committee that was studying the bill, and much of the discussion and much of the presentations that were made, it was all around board transparency and including parents in the discussion. I'm not clairvoyant. I'm not going to try and guess what the outcome of this Trustee Meisner's motion is, but the fact is we could be going through, if it's approved, we could be going through an exercise and then have to do a reversal potentially once Bill 98 passes, because Bill 98 is strongly focused on parental involvement and being prescriptive to boards that are trying to shut parents out of the discussion. So I would think that the wise thing to do would be to postpone consideration pending passage, which I think probably might take place within the next 30 days. And so I don't see any big issue in trying to putting that aside for now until passage, and then we have a pretty good idea what will be coming down from the ministry. I think the Ministry of Education is very serious about what they wish to do with boards that are shutting parents out.
Okay, thank you. I'll just remind Trustee Ramsey that this would be an ad hoc committee that's work would be ongoing. It's not a decision that's going to be made in the next 30 days, for example. Okay, we are now speaking to the motion to postpone. So trustee Pytowski, you'd like to speak to the motion to postpone?
Yes, speaking against the motion to postpone, I'll congratulate my colleague on having been invited to present before the committee today. And I know that that the bill is likely to pass. The governing party holds a majority, and I think their direction is clear. However, if we vote tonight to form an ad hoc committee and then subsequently ratify that decision at the end of May, the committee will have the knowledge of what the bill contains as it does its work before it reports back with any specific recommendations for bylaw amendments. So, in fact, this bylaw review couldn't be more timely. And I don't believe that we should postpone formation of the ad hoc committee.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Watson?
I wanted to agree with trustee Ramsey. The government has made it clear that it is important what parents have to say. And they want parents to know what is going on. And they want parents to participate in all levels when it comes to their children. And so I don't understand what the rush is. I know I've heard the word consensus. That seems to be a topic. Maybe we're moving to a consensus board and we're not going to vote. That means we're going to be here for a long time. But anyway, I would say that, you know, yes, the ministry is moving in this direction, but not only that, we don't even know what Trustee Meisner hopes to accomplish through this. He's saying it's a great idea and we should look at it. And there's things, but yet we don't know what direction. So I think we need to really take a pause and probably get some more information as to what the whole intent and purpose of this bylaw motion is all about, because right now we know nothing.
Trustee Meisner, would you like to
If I could
respond to
respond,
that?
Trustee Watson, to the chair, you say you don't know what my intent is because I don't want to dictate what I think the bylaws should be. I think we should work together in an ad hoc committee to review the bylaws, which means go through them one at a time. The ones that I did refer to, 13, 14, 24, was in deference to you because I know that they're important to you. I would assume you'd be part of the ad hoc committee, that we would have.
Just a point of order, Madam Chair. Is this in speaking to
Trustee Ramsey?
Is this in speaking to the amendment? The discussion around the amendment? I'm sorry, not the
Trustee,
amendment, but the
Watson?
postponement consideration. It's around postponing the consideration of the motion.
Okay, we are speaking.
Discussion back.
Okay, I will sustain your point of order. We are speaking about the postponing. And I will put Trustee Meisner on, he is on my speaking list to come back later. Okay. We are speaking for the motion to postpone. Trustee Radlin? Did you want to speak to the motion to postpone?
Am I allowed to ask Trustee Ramsey a question?
About the motion to postpone? Yes. Ask your question through me and then I'll direct it.
Okay, so through the chair. My question is, the motion to postpone is because Bill 98 addresses parent involvement. Is that correct?
I think there's quite a number of things in Bill 98.
Well, I guess my question is, why is, if the bylaws, if this motion is asking that the bylaws be reviewed by a committee of trustees, which could include Trustee Ramsey and Trustee Watson, I don't understand why it assumes that reviewing the bylaw means that we don't want parents to be involved. Because I certainly want parents to be involved and we want to look at the whole delegation process. So I'm trying to understand what the thinking is, what it is.
The
what-
connection between Bill 98.
Yes, why is the
bylaws?
assumption that this bylaw is about the motion?
Okay,
Trustee Meisner's motion is about excluding parents because, I think, yes, I'm not sure why that is.
Trustee Ramsey, in your motion to postpone, you talked about Bill 98. Can you clarify?
Thank you for the opportunity to clarify. And simply put, just even looking at the past experience from even earlier in this same meeting, the pattern has been that we shut parents out. But that said, Bill 98. from all the
Trustee
discussions-
Ramsey,
I'm
that
sorry?
is inappropriate. That was not in the discussion at all. Please
No, what I'm
retract
suggesting is
that
that,
statement.
Madam Chair, that what has taken place over the course of this meeting are a number of incidents that points to or would suggest that the viewpoints, I mean, when parents, I mean, I've posted and I've encouraged parents to put in freedom of information requests, for example. But for the board to be telling parents specifically tonight that they should put an FOI request for information that should be readily available to them, it points to an issue. To the point or the question raised.
Point of order, this is not the motion.
Trustee Ramsey, just a moment. Just a moment. There's a point of order. Trustee Pawlikowski, what is your point of order?
Yes, this is a motion to defer, and Trustee Ramsey is not speaking to the motion to defer, which was his own motion.
Okay, we're moving on.
Madam Chair,
We're
I was
moving on.
responding.
You
You
have-
gave me permission to answer Trustee Radling's question. It was that's what I was.
And we've
suggesting.
gone off on a tangent and we're pulling it back to the motion to postpone. Trustee Wasim, do you have a question on the motion to postpone?
I think given the time, I will just withhold my comments for now.
Okay, thank you. Okay. There is a motion to postpone that's been, oh, sorry, did you have a question on the motion to postpone?
I have a comment, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
go ahead.
Yeah, I will be voting against the motion to postpone because for the reasons that Trustee Pawlikowski suggested, if we move ahead and form the ad hoc committee, we'll be in great position for when the results of when Bill 98 is passed. And then that committee can work on whatever comes from Bill 98. I think it puts us in a more on the offense instead of the defense. So I'll be voting against the motion to postpone.
Okay. Motion to postpone has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay. And opposed? Okay, thank you. And that motion is defeated. We are back to the original motion, which is on folio 13, original amended motion, sorry, which is on folio 13 without the wording commensurate with current legislation, policies and procedures. Okay. Speaking for the first time, I have Trustee Radlin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm hearing Trustee Watson's concern that the fact that Trustee Meisner is asking for a review of all the bylaws means that her concerns about delegates and the process and so on will not be addressed. And I guess I'm wondering, Trustee Watson, why you think that? Because I think I get the sense from all trustees that they think the delegation process can be improved. And I don't get the sense that your suggestions are being dismissed. My interpretation of the motion was that they would be part of the consideration in addition to other bylaws and the whole process. So I guess I'm wondering if you could help me to understand why it is you feel that we are trying to not only exclude parents, but also to dismiss your concerns.
Trustee Radlin, in the future, please direct your questions through the chair.
Sorry, through the
Okay.
chair.
Thank you.
So
Trustee Watson, I'm going to just give you a couple minutes to
Okay.
respond very quickly, please.
I think it goes through the lack of knowledge of Robert's rules. And so once my motion was voted down,
It was not.
it was. The notice was voted down. And so that is an indication that this board does not even want to hear or debate it a week from today. Which means when you vote it down, you have to bring a motion of reconsideration to bring it back, which according to our bylaws is that you bring that notice of reconsideration, you need a 2/3 to reopen it, or you have to wait a whole year to bring that. It is true. This is what our bylaws state. And so once it's voted down and ratified at the end of the month, you can't look at those because it was voted down. What you're essentially saying is you see all of these things you're bringing forward. No, this is not of interest to us.
Okay, I'm going to turn to Ms. Rydell. What we voted down was to schedule a motion. We did not vote on the motion itself. Ms. Rydell, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, through the chair, just to confirm that is the process that was undertaken this evening, was that a motion to schedule the bylaw amendment request from Trustee Watson was what was defeated. And therefore it's not the same as a reconsideration. We have very detailed process for bylaw amendments specifically, which is what would be followed rather than the specifics of the reconsideration. So it needs to go through the process. The process it's gone through is fine. There's not a problem with it from that perspective.
So I
Thank
can serve another notice of motion tonight, that exact same motion, I can serve it again tonight.
No. If you serve it, there is already a motion under consideration. If you serve that motion again, it will come back to be rescheduled.
I thought they weren't the same though. So now you're saying they're the same motion
If you serve that motion,
tonight?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay, Ms. Rydell?
Through the chair, the motion to schedule your motion was defeated. So if you were to resubmit the same motion, we cannot go through the process of scheduling the same motion because it's been defeated from that perspective.
That's what I've been trying to say. Yes.
And it's been defined though that your motion is different than Trustee Meisner's.
The same motion.
That's your interpretation,
Yes.
but it has been.
To that later.
Okay, we're moving on. Trustee Woodcock, for the second time, did you want to speak to the
motion
amended?
Yes, I'll be supporting this. I see it as it's the usual, or what my experience has been for making bylaw changes. And I see nothing in this motion that would indicate the result of what any changes might be. We've heard from delegations, we've heard from trustees that we need to look at our bylaws, those specifically, and improve them so that they're fair and equitable. They're deemed maybe not to be so far, and the ad hoc committee can take into consideration all sorts of information. And according to the terms of reference for the committee, it's all listed there, what the bylaw or what the ad hoc committee would do as far as reviewing other practices, providing regular updates to the board as to the work of the committee. I'll be supporting the motion.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at the time. It is almost 9:30. Can I have a motion to extend? Moved by trustee Watson, seconded by trustee Cody. All in favor? Okay, and I think opposed? Don't know if I saw everybody's hand. Okay, thank you. That motion is carried. Okay. Trustee Watson for the second time.
Thank you. Yes, this is very unusual. It's highly unusual that, a trustee would duplicate another trustee's motion. And trustee Meisner already admitted it when he said he was surprised I wouldn't support it because I also want to look at 13, 14, and 24. The same section that are in my motion are in his motion. And yet, you know, his motion clearly undercuts my motion. And then I'm told that we need to work together. I don't understand. I feel there are two sets of rules. Rules for the majority and rules for the minority voice at this table. I don't understand it. We need training on Robert's rules. I know that. When somebody votes against a motion and I'm bringing things that are important to me, I just assumed that those wouldn't be important to the mover. I suspect that, you know, looking at this information and how this is all rolling out tonight, huge red flag for me. No, there's no way I'm supporting this motion. And I hope that whoever is watching, they watch this motion very carefully for the recommendations that will be coming back.
Trustee Wasim.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I will be supporting the motion to form this ad hoc committee. And my key concern with the earlier motion is, I think Trustee Woodcock put it best with time and consideration for some of the items that were listed in the motion that we were debating whether to schedule or not, that Trustee Watson brought forward. So my concern was about the time and attention we can give to the items that are listed, personally speaking. And so I wanted an ad hoc committee that can have this at-length discussion because we can't sit here for 5 hours longer and discuss every single item here. A committee has more space to do that. So I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Trustee Meisner, would you like to wrap up?
No, I think we've heard some, I do think, I understand Trustee Watson's being upset with the fact that it sounds like, but I don't agree that they are the same motion. I am not giving specific directions. I'm asking for collaboration with trustees so that this board could govern and move us forward rather than, as Trustee Wasim said, that we stayed stuck. And it does feel like there are some important things to discuss, honestly, that we need to discuss them, but it's to move forward, not backward. And we only do that through collaboration. That's how this board is supposed to work. That's my personal belief. That's the people that I represent. That's what I ran my platform.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Meisner. The motion has been moved. The amended motion has been moved and seconded. We'll move to a vote. All in favor? Thank you. And opposed? Okay, and that motion is carried. Okay.